I usually like to share the live out there too. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Just double check that things are actually working. Wait for Facebook to catch up here. There we go. Okay. Miasin, so we're open to requests tonight. And usually what I like to do is Wednesdays I'm thinking like kind of a grammar study or something like that. Tisqua. My mic doesn't seem very loud. What's going on? Tisqua, tisqua. I'm gonna have to tweak my audio settings here a little bit. Bear with me. La-di-da. Tisqua, tisqua. Great time to have audio issues. Is it working now? Looks like it. Okay. And we'll just bump that output a tiny bit. Hopefully that's not too bad. Wonder why it got quiet all of a sudden. That seems really weird. Okay. Just kind of open the floor for any study requests tonight. I got a few folks joined in on TikTok. Welcome, welcome. Hey, Brandon, Tanesse. Tansigia. And one or two folks on the Discord, so it's going to leave it open for a minute. I had a couple things I thought maybe we'd work on tonight. Wednesday night's just kind of a study night, but I also want to leave it open for requests if there's something. My wife is a teacher and she does these in the school. They do what do you call it? Office hours? Office hours, which is kind of cool. Students can just drop in and like ask questions and stuff. And so I'm like, well, I think that would be cool because I think learners supporting each other. Everything that I guess I'll say everything I know about the language was shared with me by other learners that were ahead of me. And I think that's really powerful. So yeah, just leave it wide open. If anybody has any questions or suggestions or something they would like to go over or review. Another thing I want to do, I don't think I'm going to do it tonight, but another thing I'm thinking about is breaking, I think it'd be cool to break Wednesday up into 2 chunks. The first hour, we just do some study. And then the second hour, I'd like to bring in a fluent speaker. And I have a few people in mind, just ask and see who's available and see if they would come in and help us write a story. I think that'd be really cool. I have some stories that I'm working on that I want to be able to tell. It's one of those, there was this activity right when COVID happened. There was this fellow, I think he was in LA or New York, and he was like, he wasn't working at the time and he was learning French, I think. And he was using this storytelling method where he would try and tell a story for 5 minutes in French. And then he would record himself. And when he didn't know words, like you could tell in the beginning he was really struggling, like very beginner. But then he would do this basically every day, try and tell a story. And then he would go back and watch himself. And when he struggled with a word or didn't know something, he would take note of those. And then he would go and find out how to say those things. And then he would tell the story again. And he would do this every day, every day. And when you watch his stuff, like when he goes from like the first month to like the 12th month, by the 12th month, he sounds like, I'm not a French speaker, but like he sounds fluent. He just speaks very naturally. And he sounds like somebody who's worked on the language every day. And so I think about that, and I think about trying to tell stories again. Because I tried it a while ago, and it's super hard to do. Like, I've got a couple of stories. And one of the things is it has to be a story about, your life. Has to be like from your past or relevant to your background. And then that way it's more memorable, I guess. Eh? So I think maybe what I'll do to get started up here tonight is we'll just read a little bit to start. And I don't know how to put... Yeah, that's probably fine. We'll just leave it. We're just going to read a story. I think we'll read a story. Let's read this one here. This one, The Shut-Eye Dancers by Coming Day, which is pretty great. I just read this one, a different version of this from Solomon Rat to my little one. I apologize, the vertical view if you're watching on TikTok and it's a vertical view, you can switch to the horizontal view and it'll look a little better. Okay, let's do this. Kei tato e pimutit we sageita. No tegete o magamina e pimutit. Ka wapa mat si pa. Egwanis kamitit si pa. Do you want to break some of this down, or do you want me to just read? Because we can stop and talk about some of these bits too, eh? If it's up to you. It's up to y'all, whatever you want to do. Already in that first sentence, that first stanza, we've run into some interesting stuff. I've been reading this book, this paper by Claire Cook. I just come back to it and started reading it again. Well, actually, I jumped into the middle because I'm horrible for that kind of stuff. But and it's changed my perspective on how the conjunct, the E conjunct, and the ga. What does she call that? When we first learned ga, and actually that's one of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. Was ga, like what does that mean? Usually we think of it as like where or when. Ita ga, ispi ga, ga wapamat. But in this context, well, the way that she describes it is it's something that's, how does she describe that? Presupposed or something like that. It in this context, I think it just means that like it happened. The difference between the E conjunct and the ga conjunct or subjunct or whatever you want to call it is that. Oh, how would I explain that? I would say that is like when he saw some ducks. But over here, if you look at he saw some ducks and many geese. Gawapamat. It's almost like it's locked to a point in time, or it's like, I'll have to go back now and look at that. So I'm not explaining this very well. But I used to get confused by this when it's like, well, why did you use ga there? But it's almost like, I wish I could remember the word Claire uses. It's on my iPad. Anyway, we'll just keep going. I don't see any comments here, so we'll just keep going. Yeah. Eggs seom sisi tetam. Tansaga sinipahagik itetam. How am I gonna? Well, the English is there, so I'll let you read the English on your own. Okay, tatoe gawapa tak. Sagay higanis. Ego tasisane nipik. Gawapa tak. Asisiya some weeds. You know what I'm going to do actually is one more thing here. Because I like to draw on the screen. But in order to do that, I have to shut some stuff down so I can access ghost mode. There we go. There we go. Assisia. Otanam. E titipina. Titipina. Rolled them up. That's an interesting word. E titipina. Mistehe tahkopitam. That's to carry something, eh? So he carried a lot. E naya tak, which is to carry it on your back. E sipui date. He rolled them up and he carried them. He threw them over his back and he left, I guess, eh? Sisipa tagayayet. Where the ducks were. Ego tatsige pimutit. He went back along close to where those ducks were, I guess. Gawapam gut sisipa. So that e gut, that means that the ducks saw him, eh? Gawapam gut. Omse toyo sisipak. Ah, stay snow toyowak. Kigwai ka naya ta. What is he carrying? Exit toyowak. Mahting ka kwait sa mau toyowa si sip. I'm gonna ask him, said one of those ducks. Eha et toyowak. And stay ze. Kigwai ka naya taman. What are you carrying on your back, I guess, eh? Ah, it's pago pimurteo. Took me a long time to figure out what that meant, but like, just, it's like nevertheless, or just, he just kind of kept doing what he was doing. He kept on walking. Ah, it's pago pimurteo. Tapskutse guy petuat, like he didn't hear them. Ah, it's pago pimurteo. Ah, saimina. Sisi pomsito. Stay say kigwaga nayahtaman. Igoyagok ni pau weisage tsak. It's interesting, this word here, that iagok and egoyagok. It's like hard to describe, eh? Only then, I guess, in this context. To that extent, to that degree, that's enough. Only then. And then if you just say iagok, so much, to such a degree, more in comparison. It's one of those ones that can be used in different, like I heard the other day, iagok tagoteo, and I was like, that doesn't fit with my understanding of that word at all. Iagok. That's okay. We'll just keep going. Different Koopa. This is so cool. Thanks for doing this. We need this determination in our young people to learn. We need, yes, determination, but to the other side, accessibility. We need to reduce barriers to language learning because young people do want to learn. The young people want to know their language. So how do we make it more accessible? Iagok ni pau weisage tsak ni pau. In Plains Cree Y dialect, in the Treaty 6 around the Edmonton area, the way I'll hear this IW ending, the W is more like a vowel than it is a consonant. Like if you think about that word, Tisqua. I have a good example here. Tisqua. So if you think about this word, I have to get to the bottom. I've got 33 pages of notes here, 32 pages of notes. Okay, this word, napeo. Well, why does the last sound Why does it go eo, eo? If you think about that, na peo, right? And that's because each of these has its own sound. A, u, right? Like even if you think about this, Musqua. If you slow that down, that W is not really a W. It's more like an O. It's a rounding of the lips. Musqua. What do your lips do when you make that sound? Musqua. That's why when you diminutize that, it turns into an O in muscosis, because it's actually like. But if we spell it this way, maybe people will get confused, or we're trying to make it easier. I don't know. Different Koopa says, Woodland Cree, these youth around here are assimilated to the. I think they might not, they will be interested one day, right? And so there's a whole conversation there around, even if it's not right now, if it's down the road, what does that look like? Like, the Western system of teaching the language isn't working. I don't think, I haven't seen it anywhere. Like I know people who've gone through like they're like grade 1 to 12 and they're like at the end of grade 12, all I know is like my animals and colors and how to introduce myself and not really much more than that, right? So if the Western system was going to give us fluent speakers, it would have done it by now. So we just need to think about how we create speakers differently. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Edwin. Eguayats should be used there, Doyle. I missed that. I've got to keep an eye on all of my eyes. I got chat windows all over the place. So sorry I missed your comment. Eguayats should be used there. Where in place of egoyagok? Eguayats. Yeah, it's interesting. Different Koopa says, because my parents and grandparents were afraid to speak it and only heard it, the trap line in the house. Yeah. Yeah, for real. I've heard that from different folks who said, they wanted their kids to succeed, so they didn't teach them the language, or they didn't want their kids to be taken away, so they didn't teach them the language. Right? So there's lots of reasons, and it's not to there's lots of reasons people don't speak, right? And so in the same sense, I guess, for people who are speakers, like how do we create opportunities for them to feel comfortable to do so, right? Let's keep going a little bit here. Edwin says that he would say egoyats instead of egoigok. Yeah, which is interesting. Ma, tuyo, kigwaganayat man. What is it that you're carrying? He says. Wah. I always have to work on this word. Pasakwapsimona. Pasakwapsimona. Tuyo usagi. He says, these are shut-eye dances, he says. Kigwai pasakwapsimuin. Tuyo sisip. What's a shut-eye dance? Usagi tsak umsito. Nimenana tuyo. Which I guess, I want to look this up because over here, this is a 100-year-old interpretation of this. So I don't know if the words, Niminana, a dance, I guess. Dances. Yeah, which makes sense. But over here it says a saltatory rite. Whatever that means. I don't know what saltatory means. Different Koopa says, I don't speak it often because there aren't a lot of people left to talk to. If you have stories and stuff, I would say record yourself. Record your stories, your family history. Record your community history, relationships with other communities, notable sites around where you live, historical sites, sacred sites, anything that you have knowledge about. All of that language will be important, and if you have kids, they may not realize that they're interested in the language now, but they will be. Hey? So we've all got these magical devices in our pockets. So just take a catalog of the things that you know if you're able, if you're comfortable. And, just keep those stories and just tuck them away for your family. Because they don't know it now, but they will be interested one day. Yeah. So this is cool. Niminana, which are dances, but a saltatory rite. What does that mean, saltatory? Something that precedes, derived from the Latin to leap or dance. Anyway, it sounds like he's talking up these dances anyway. Yeah. Ni mi anan. Ni mi anan. So I don't hear this much in where I learned I don't hear ni mo for dance, though I suppose more often than not I hear ni mito, but ni mo. And so if you take this, can you say, oh, can somebody shut that door, please? Nimi heo, to make someone dance. Nimi heo. Nimi heo. Nimi anan, which to me means like, oh, make us a dance. Make us dance then. But do give us a dance. Nimi anan. Itueo sisip. Nga pasa kwap simonan. We're going to do the shut-eye dance. Let's do it. Hai, tueo isage tsak. Mia sine gitama ginoyek. Nisimtik. Namawiyak tapwe ta ko. This happens twice in this story here, and then he uses it again down here. And this is I should ask Edwin, do you recognize that form? Does it make sense to you? Nitapwe ta go. And I'm pretty sure there's a couple of words in that Sweetgrass story that I was working on from Wes where he used that form. And there's a fancy word for it in the linguistic stuff. They call it a preterite. I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't even know how to explain it. It sort of means like, well, let's see if we can Google it. What is a preterite? Expressing a past action or state? I don't know. That doesn't help me at all. But this is something I don't hear very often. Except I think I've heard Wes say it, like use this particular form a couple of times. And I should really ask him, like, what does that mean? Because I don't hear it very much. Yeah, Edwin says it sounds Ojibwe. Yeah, it's interesting. It's in the literature from some of the older linguistic materials, like Wolfart 73 or whatever. He talks about this two different types of preterite. Again, I don't really know what it means, and just that they're less and less common, like they're not used very much. De nimito tsik gaya segi asurtaman tamito inikian. So I over here it says, no one has given heed to me until now and danced. Gaya segi asurtaman. I pledged, I guess. Asurtam. To promise. This is an interesting word. We can break that down for a sec. This one's kind of fun. Because if we go back to that word, nimito, which is like dance, or that one dances. So then if we say nimito win, so this is a verb, right? Nimito, that one dances. Bump that down a tiny bit. That's still okay. That one dances. Then if we say nimito win, then that would be a dance. But if you add a, you can add this ending onto a word, a noun generally, and then it becomes to make, ihke. So then you can say, so again, this is a noun, and I think dances are inanimate. So if you add nimitoenike, that now is now a verb again, and that means make a dance. I'm telling you, nimitoenike, make a dance. Whatever that means. So now I can conjugate this. For me or you or whoever else, I can say, egi nimito enike. We made a dance. E nimito enike. There's a dance or there's a dancing. I don't know if you'd say that. Yeah, but that's what this one is here. I had promised to make a dance. I had made a pledge a long time ago. I'd pledged to make a dance. Of course, he's tricking them, right? Egsipe gapag. Gapao, is that what that is? Stories are good this way because that repetition, eh? How often would you use this word unless you spend a lot of time on the lake or something? Come ashore. Gapao. That one comes ashore. That one lands. Yeah. Egsipe gapag. Okay then. Load up. Tasepuetewak. Egwasisipak min anis kakakyo itotewak. So they left from where they were, I guess. The ducks and the geese. That word, soya, Edwin says, hosting a round dance is a perfect example of that one. Ewi nimito winike. There's going to be a round dance. Maybe you'd say that, hey? Om sito isage tak. Mats kagepatsak. I wonder if this word is in, I think it means like fool or something, doesn't it? Yeah, fool. Here's that other example of that H preterite. Ninotega te wa. Which I don't, it's like, yeah, I don't, like obviously ninotega tan would be like I'm hungry. Ninotega te wa. I've been starving. So it's like, what's the specific form of that? What does that mean? It's interesting. Mr. Hingamitsun. He thought, oh, I'm gonna eat lots. Ea pit egota tagoteyua. So as he's I guess it's saying where he sat. Ea pit egota tagoteyua. And that yuwa, that would be the ducks and the geese, right? Tagoteyua. Because that's the difference between when you're reading a story like this. Again, there's two sort of third persons in a story, and so we're on 19. We'll come back to that in a second. We go back up a little bit, right to the beginning. And we see that we have Wesagetzak. I'm going to move that because it's annoying. And then we have si, si, pa, niska, right? They end in an sound. Si, si, pa. Because there's two third persons. There's the person we're talking about, and then there's like a supplemental third person. So we need to know that who's in what, who's in focus, or who we're talking about, right? In this case, we're talking about Wisageitsak. So when we see that yuwa, tagohteyuwa, that means those other ones. Because if it was Wisageitsak that arrived, that would be tagohteo, right? Tagohteyuwa, that's the other ones. But he's the one that's sitting, but the other ones that are arriving. Retin Cyrus says, where do we find this? You can find this here. I'll drop it in this document. This is the site. Actually, if you just go to, if you go to my website here, Keanu.net, you can find it under Bloomfield. So if we go there, I'll give you a second to screenshot it if you want. Keanu.net. And then if you go there and you just scroll down, you'll find it under Bloomfield right down here, Bloomfield Online. And you can see the link there. Visit Bloomfield Online. That'll take you to the stories. And there's Plains Cree texts on the left and Sacred Stories on the right. These are from these were captured in 1925, but Sacred Stories was published in 1930. Plains Cree text was published in 1934. And we're working on Coming Day, the Shut-Eye Dancers from Sacred Stories. All right. Stamtik, nsimtik, toyo wisagitak. Kevin. Tapwe. Egwa isipwe tate. A sagayik. Yito Tate. He went for the bush. Where it was bush, he set out for, I guess, setting out. Making for a clump of trees, it says. Mihtaita imitse teniege. So this is going to be mitse nu. I don't know this word. No. Mitse niege. Interesting word. It sounds like it comes from plentiful, like mitzeit, niege. I wonder if it's supposed to be, I wonder if it's a typo. Mitzeitu, which is animate. Mitzeitin. Oh, there it is right there. Mitzeitin. But it seems like, yeah, it seems like a typo. It seems like it should be mitzeiteniege, where they were plentiful. Pretty sure that's what's happening there. Ego tatagoteo. Yeah. Edwin says mitzeit. Mitzeit, be mitzeitiege, right? Mitzeitege. Mitzeit, disqua. Of course, there's no entries in there. Mitzeitinwa. This one here. Mitzeitniege. Yeah, that's the one. Ego tatagoteo. Nsim tik otinamok mita. Take the firewood. Ito. Tapwe otinamwak mitzeit. Ego osita tik wiguao. Egota iapahque tik oho asisia, those weeds. Apahqueo. Let's look that word up. Thatch something, right? What a cool word, but like how, I guess to make a roof or to thatch a roof. Apahqueo. It's pretty cool. Apsasiniu squate miss. Apsasiniu, it was little, the doorway. Eh? Ha igwan simtik pitogek or pitogwek, the way I would normally hear that. It will. Come inside, nigan te pitogewak, neskak, egwaga misigit tik sisi pak. So the first ones to come inside will be the geese and the big juicy ducks. It will. Tige ma, eogo nik, eogi mau tik it will. Tige ma, especially. Naturally, evidently, certainly. So it says especially over here. Especially those who are chiefs. E ogimautik. We squate mi exeum sisi itapiua. Eago nekneskak. We squate me. Something about the door. The translation said facing the door. I don't recognize opposite of the door. Oh, I looked this up the other day. Opposite of the door. Again, what a cool word. We squate me. I wonder if there's other words that you can use that. Just kind of scanning through Ben's site here for opposite. I don't really see much. Interesting. We squate me. Opposite the door. Oh, a comment from Discord. What would be really helpful if there's a highlight of the same color on each word or sentence on Cree to English, so I could better understand, like in a sentence saying something like, how have you been? How being the same color. Have you been, different color, break it down. That makes sense. Yeah. And there's, when you get into the there's actually a process they do in linguistics for that called intralinear glossing, where they literally do that. Like they'll break down a word. Like this one, it'll be e conjunct. Upsis is little. Itik is like the third person plural, right? It would work sometimes with these stories. I think there's some liberties in the interpretations. But yeah, I get what you're saying, making it easier to sort of correlate one to the other. That makes sense. Christina, if you go to here, this is my site, Keanu.net, and then you can, I'll give you a second to screenshot that. And then if you scroll down on the page to Bloomfield Online, and Bloomfield Online, you can click that and get to the stories. A on Discord says, when I try to read it, overwhelms me and I have no idea what the Cree word means in each sentence. Yes. Oh, I see. The other one, that's Ben's site. Yeah, this one here. How do I make that bigger? This one. Yeah, and basically Ben Godden, he's one of my mentors and a friend, and he's built a bunch of stuff. But this site, you can kind of search for different things. Like this is the beginning of. If I use that little caret, like then I'm just looking for words that start with W long E. But if I wanted to see all of the words that end in long EW, I can use a dollar and it'll search everything that just ends, or like NEW, everything that ends in NEW. Or you can just search for anything that has NEW in it. Like you can do just sort of morpheme type or string based searching. Yeah. Yeah. So that comment from Discord, what would be a good recommendation for that? There are some good, I think the best thing I can say is like, there's a book from Eric Wolvengray called Wawitatsimonsa, Funny Little Stories. Gray, this one. It's not super expensive. You can find it even sometimes at Chapters. In the languages section, there's some books in there usually. And this is a good one. And then there's another one in the same series that's TH. The stories are very similar anyway. But basically, they're a little bit easier. And the work was done by students. And so you can read along side by side between the Cree and the English. And they're a little bit shorter stories, so you can kind of work through them a bit more. I'm afraid I don't have a really great process for getting to that point. Like basically, I would just keep coming back to reading and trying to work through this stuff. Like these Bloomfield stories are a little bit more advanced. There's a lot of advanced language in here, and I just keep coming back to them, but I've been at this for 7 years, right? So I don't have a great process other than just like keep testing where you're at and keep trying to just advance a little bit. But definitely these stories, there was a point where I started and I tried reading them and I didn't really understand anything in there. And it wasn't that much later, like a couple of years later, I remember looking back at that book and being like, wow, I can read this. I understand most of this, right? There was just a few words in there I didn't understand. So I don't know exactly what the process looks like. I think in there I'd also started transcribing a little bit too. Spend a lot of time trying to find words, basically. Yeah. And I don't know how to bottle that up into a process that just makes sense. I think about it a lot though. Yeah. But thankfully for most of these, you can usually, you can associate this sentence here with largely the first sentence in this stanza, right? So all of these words over here, they need to relate to those words over there. So it's just a lot of going back and forth. But then also you can take each of these words and drop them in to the Ituewana dictionary and get a little bit of a sense. Learning the right way to learning the phrasing of things, though, that's tricky. Because I'll look at sentences sometimes where I'm like, sometimes a sentence makes perfect sense to me, but sometimes I'll read a sentence and it's like, I don't understand that yet. Yeah. All right, let's keep going a little bit. Tansi Bill. Bill says, why a weetim squat is just outside the door. That's a cool word. That's a cool word. Yeah. Retin Cyrus says, this is such an amazing resource. My students are going to be using your site a lot. Miasin, I hope that's helpful. There's some other projects in there that we're working on too that I'm hoping. A lot of the stuff that I focus on focuses on intermediate learners, because a lot of us, well, all of us that I know of are self-study, like to get to a place of intermediate language and then to continue to advance at an intermediate language just requires self-study. There's not really university courses or classes or a course. Like there's just really nothing out there. It's just everybody I know that is it at an intermediate level, they're doing it on their own. And so a lot of the stuff I focus on is that specifically. But I've been thinking a lot lately, as I work with different groups, like how do we more effectively get people from a beginner state to an intermediate state? And that's a question that's on my mind a lot. Like I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like. There's a curriculum out here that's been used a lot that I think about. It's called the Paul Creek, and it's not perfect. There's a lot of parts that aren't great about it, but it does, if you go through it, it does give you a lot of language, and it does a good job of getting people to like pretty much I'll say maybe like a low intermediate level or an advanced beginner, right? You get a lot of language from it, but it's also very intensive and it's not culturally oriented, so it's not perfect. Yeah, the Paul Creek curriculum, yeah. My wife went through that, a version of it when she came out here and started on her language. And again, everybody that's gone through it, they got a lot of language, but it also has some problems. So anyway, think about that quite a bit. Yeah, good questions. Let's just keep going. I will say on Discord, hey, if you're still in there, just don't give up, because the more you are listening and the more you are working on the language every day, your brain is doing the work even if it doesn't seem like it. Especially listening. Like I know it's really hard to listen to a language and not understand what's being said, but the more you're able to endure that process of just listening and listening and listening, your brain will start picking out the patterns, and then as you look up the words, then you'll have a foundation from which those pieces can be built on, and you'll remember things. At one point I was listening to language enough that I would wake up. I'd have words stuck in my head, and I'd be like, you get a song stuck in your head? I'd have like a word or a phrase stuck in my head, and I had no idea what it meant. It's like, I just don't know what that means. But it's stuck in my head. Let's keep going a little bit here. Wasquate mikegse omsisi itapiua. That's those other ones. Itapiua, they sat thusly. Itapu, maybe to sit a certain way. Itapu. To sit thusly, placed thus. Itapu. So they sit in a certain place. We squat mi egsi omsi itapiua eogoniskak, they sat across from the door. Nete isquate mi, over there by the door or in the door, eogonik eapsistik egota apuak, the little ones. At the other end it says, but nete squate meek, over by the door, in the door, the little ones, egota apuak. Now you see how it's interesting that first they started with it started in the obviate. Omese itapiua. But then it's switched. It's always just interesting and can be confusing for me anyway. I'll finish this stanza and then I'll come back to your comments there. Egwa kipa hamo ma squate ma wawasagi tsak. So then he shut the door. Egaga waiui tik. They're not going to go out, he thought. E tetak. Egomato e sage tak. So then he starts crying. A on Discord says, that's right, and it's a slow process. It takes a lot of patience. Some days I wish I could just learn how to speak and understand fluently in a week, but that will never happen. It takes a lot of work. So I'll tell you a little story. I spent the summer, 3 weeks, actually, well, I've spent almost a month over the summer hanging out with this fellow here, Wes Fine. And it's a long story, so I'll keep it short, but we met just kind of randomly in Winnipeg at Transcription Society out there. Some learners out there had were doing some transcribing. I had formed a group, Donis Kennedy and a bunch of folks, Nishnabeg and Nehiwak out of the Nehinawak out of the MICEC in Winnipeg, and they'd formed this. They had a couple of days where we brought in some elders and stuff, and did a bunch of recording and stuff. And there I met this old guy, Wes Finde, and I used to feel like I would never be in a place where I understood, or I would never be fluent enough. And after spending a bunch of time, I've spent 3 weeks now recording him, and I have about 24 hours of materials we're slowly putting online. But after the first week, I had about maybe 10 or 12 hours just the first week. And after that first session, I was like, and I'd spent another week with him at camp at Sweetgrass. And it was the first time where I felt like this is possible. I feel like today I can get where I want to be in the language. It really does just take a lot of listening, like a lot. So I do want to say that to encourage you. It does take a lot, but if you just work at it a little bit, right, to the degree you're able, make sure you're listening every day. Make sure that you're working on your language a little bit. Make sure that you're spending some time visiting and speaking with other learners, especially if you can find other learners to converse with. Bill Relic on Facebook just fired up a group on Monday nights that he's, which is more of like a advanced beginner, low intermediate kind of study group. And it's just like whatever everybody wants to do. But I cannot recommend enough. Hang out with other learners, especially those who are more advanced than you. I know that's intimidating sometimes. I hear from people like people are shy and they don't want to impose, or they feel intimidated or something. But if you can, go and hang out with other learners. Go and hang, especially the more you hang out with people who are better than you at the language, the more and the faster you will learn. That's to the degree that you're able. I know there's a conversational group in Edmonton that's still going every Thursday night. Somebody shows up and they get together and they study. And I spent a lot of time there when I was in Edmonton. I spent a lot of time with those folks, right? And I picked up more language there than just about anywhere until this summer. Yeah. Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of work, but I mean, like my wife would say, life is work. Life is work. you know, but that doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. That doesn't mean we can't enjoy that or be in that be in a good place throughout that process, right? Turn that feeling, or get to a good place with your language, your relationship with your language journey, where you feel inspired and hopeful, and you feel like this is worthwhile and fulfilling and meaningful, because it is, right? And it might feel like, I've heard a lot. I mean, I said that at the beginning too. I'll be fluent in a year, right? But it's just, that's not possible. But that you can do a lot in a year. You can get to a place in a year where you look back at these stories. You'll look back at these stories, and you'll be like, oh, I understand all that now. I understand all that now, right? If you trust yourself, trust your gun will do the work if you feed it, right? Whenever I hear people sometimes say, oh, I can't remember that word. I can never remember the words. Like, can you help me spell this? I can't remember how to, and 100% I'll help people learn how to spell. Learning how to spell things is absolutely a skill, right? But also the opposite of I can't remember how to say that word is, I wake up in the morning and I got Cree words stuck in my head and I don't know what they mean, right? Because if you're listening to the language so much that you're getting them stuck in your head, right? If you're listening to the language so much that you've got words and sounds and patterns stuck in your brain, yeah, your brain will do the work. It'll make things easier for you. Yeah. So to the degree that you're able, Bill and Deidre, if you want to message me, just shoot me a message on Facebook and I'll add you to that group chat. Kevin says 20 minutes of study a day ends up being 122 hours a year, which equals 5 full days of studying around the clock. Yeah, and yeah, 122 hours isn't nothing, right? A on Discord says that's motivating to hear, just need to take it more serious instead of procrastinating. And that's everybody's, there's a lot of barriers, so procrastination is not um it's not, be sure not to shame yourself more, right? If this is your ancestral languages, don't beat yourself up for not having this. This language journey is challenging. There's a lot of work required. It is hard, right? But find ways to empower yourself, find ways to inspire yourself. And you know what's great about if you're meeting people every week to work on language, that's motivating because you're like, ooh, I get to go there and practice new words. I get to go practice that word. I get to go ask this question. I heard this word. What does that mean? Have you guys ever heard this? You ever heard this word? Right? There's a lot of motivation. Honestly, when all of y'all show up, when I come on my live streams and there's conversations like this going on, this keeps me going on, like plain and simple, right? Because it is challenging. It's like, oh, I got it. I'm not in the mood to stream tonight. Once I get going, it's like, this is good. We're having fun now. But it's just that constant push, right? Okay. Hi, yeah. Guamato, Isage started to cry. Oh, simtik. Kadaskup tilaw. Wow. Higisi tai komamiguap. I'm really grateful that you've built this lodge, he says. Hey, guy, how ya can get the maginowit. Kio wow, ga get the maginoyik. When nobody took pity on me, you all pitied me. Eetweo, e matot. He spoke as he cried, as he wept. Mato. And then he stopped crying. Sitweo isageta. How? Simtik. Uta. Tawaik. Ganipawin. I'm going to stand in the middle. Ganigamon. I'm going to sing. Negamuyane. Ganimi tonawao. When I sing, you could say if I sing, but in this context, he means when. Right? Ganimi tonawao. Y'all are going to dance. Oh, here we go. Iegok po negamuyane. He says, not until I cease singing. Iegok ketuhka pinawao. So here's that combination, iegok, egoigok. And I'm like, oh, I got to think about that for a minute. Not until, let's look that up again. Iegok. When the time comes, not until then. So I think one of my faults, or one of the challenges in learning this way for me, is that for a long time I would only look at the first definition, and sort of that's the one that's stuck in my head most of the time. But lots of these words can be used in so many different contexts, right? They can be used in so many, like they sort of mean the same thing, but the meaning, and it's not to say that we don't do that in English. I mean, there's words in English like that too, but it's challenging because it's like only then, and to such a degree to my English brain sort of mean different things. And over time, I know they will coalesce into their own meaning in the language when I'm not interpreting and when I'm just like thinking about the word in the language. But yeah, there's some of these that I'm definitely still working on. And then goyagok, only then. So in this context, iegok, so he's saying then and only then. Not until then, only then. Ego punigamuyane. Not until I stop singing, or only when I stop singing. Ego katoka pinawao. Only then will you open your eyes. Not until I stop singing, only then will you open your eyes. Kispin manto ni peitsamao. Oh, bring it. When I bring the Spirit. I hue, gaituan. I will say this. Hue. Eguta. Oh, I gotta do my puzzle. Tisqua. Inactivity detected in my live. Eguta. Suge ga nimito na. Wow. At that point, you will dance really suge. Peitowi ego. When you hear me, when you hear me call thus, ego tasugi ganimito now, wow. So there you're going to dance really hard. Peitowi ego. When you hear me, when I say that, basically. Aha, ito work. Egwa mistik ta konam. So then he took a stick. He carried it. Wisage itzak. Nipia. Ekaya sai yuige. Oh. Kaya sai yuige. What does that mean? What does it say over here? Had old leaves on it. Oh, interesting. Can you say ayuwu? Huh. It is such a thing. Gaya sayuige. They were very old, in an old state. Nipia. Gaya sayuige. Itago pitege. What, and that what must be the rustled part. Omse isiwepanach, when he swung it around. Isiwepana, which is a cool word. Well, it says throw it, but in this context, it's saying when he swung it around. Omse isiwepana. Oh, is a sewe paige tap scoots sasowiagan. O hinipia. They rustled when he swung it, just like a bell, it says here. Hegsegwa nigamo, and then he started singing. Okay. Stick, mystic. So that word mystic can take on two meanings. It can mean a stick, or it can mean a tree. And typically the difference is if you say mysticuma, oh, excuse me, then you mean like a stick or a branch, I guess. If you say mystica wa, then that's a tree. Sewe paege. This would be the ringing part. Dab scoots. Sasawia gun. That'd be the bell, I guess. Don't know the Cree word for bell. Sweepta gun. Sewea gun. Sasawea gun. Interesting. Si toyo. Ois. Aya. Psakwap samu na. Ni pe tu etan. Eg se toyo. E negamut. Nepetsuetan, nepetsuetan. Betsu, 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 no. Betsu, tiskwa. Huh. Betsueteo, nepetsuetan. Just don't know that word. Like, Bates is the bring part. That's interesting. Egsi tueo e nigamut. Ego hikakyo. E pasaguapatik. Close their eyes. E pasaguapatik. E nimito tik e tato e. Hoi, hoi. They closed their eyes and they were dancing when suddenly hoi hoi toyo sage tsak e otanat e misagiti itneska he grabbed a big goose e geese ke kwe petat geese ke kwe petat. Oh, he wrung its neck. Geese kwe petat. Hegsete was saga mate. And then he started going around. Tahke nigamut. What does that mean again? Tahke. Repeatedly. Tahke nigamut eate gisquepetat. Nisko himina sisi pagamisagitiet. The geese and the big ducks, he started bringing their necks. Nete squate make inimitot si keep. This word sticks in my head, eh? Over here, the translation for that is hell diver. But like, is there another word for that? Hell diver, duck? Is it really a grebe? I keep thinking about that word, si keep. I don't know why. Yeah. So over by the door, where was I at? Over there by the door, enimi tutsi keep. Eogo epeta kigwe heard something. Hey? E napate tokapit. Tokapit. Not tokapit, tokapit. Napate. It's like a little bit. On one side. Napate. That's cool. See, there's cool words in here, right? Napate tokapit. I get the weirdest messages on Twitch sometimes. E nimitot. So eogo e petaki we heard something. E napate tokapit. He opened one eye. E nimitot as he danced. E kawapa mat. We sage tzak. We sage tzak wa. E at the nipa hayet. So now you notice how Wisage tzak has that wa on the end, right? Because we've changed focus of who we're talking about. And that's the way things work in the language, right? Whenever you're telling a story, like a narrative, and there are people involved, you always have like a person or persons kind of in focus. They call it the third person. Sometimes it can be more than one or whatever. But there's somebody in focus, right? But then if there's other people there, other person or other people, then they will be supplemental to that. There's a word for that in the literature. They call it the obviate, that other person, right? So that's where, when we look at this word, kawapamat, that means when somebody saw somebody else, somebody saw somebody else. But then the question is, well, who saw who, right? And the way things work in the Niuewan, in the Cree language, is that when you have those two people, if I just said he saw him or she saw her, right? They saw that one. that would be ambiguous. It'd be like, well, who's doing the seeing here, right? My brothers Bill and Warren are standing over there. He saw him. Who saw who? We'd have to disambiguate, right? Clarify. But the clarity for that is built into the language because Wesage Itzhak has that wa on the end. That means that he's the one being seen. And si Kip is the one doing the seeing. That's how that works. Right? That's why that wa exists. Si Kip sa Wesage Itzhak. But in Cree we say that si sip ka wapamat Wesage Itzhak wa. That's why that wa exists on the end, so we know who did the seeing. He was killing them off. Not just a nipahat. If it was a nipahat, we'd be talking about that helldiver duck. Okay? A nipahayit. That's Wesage Itzhak wa. Those have to match. So the language has that clarity built in. Eh? It's already the disambiguation is baked into the way that you say it. So you know who's talking about who or who's doing what. Yaha tu magamina kimesti higano Wesage Itzhak tu. Yeah, he cried, magamina. Magamina. This is a cool word. Who all knows that? Who all knows that phrase? Magamina. That one kills us off. Mesteheo would be the verb. Mesteheo. Exterminate. Wipe them out. It's a cool word. Gemestehigano. He's wiping us out. Wesage Itzhak tu. He took up tagak so that more of them opened their eyes. When they opened their eyes, si tu Wesage Itzhak. Wesage Itzhak says, Kigwai oma tagapita ya nimito in. What did you think I brought you for a dance? What sort of dance would I bring you? It says over here, it says blockheads. This word we learned is ga gepatistic. Was it gepatis? Gagepatis. Fool, moron. Hey, what kind of dance did you think I brought you? You fools. You know, here's that preterite again. Ninotegeta. Ninotegeta. Iteo ohesisipa. There's another one. So sisipa. Because normally when you pluralize something, it would be sisipak. Okay? But again, iteo means that one said to that other one. So we have to have sisipa. Because if we said Wesage Itzhak iteo sisip, we wouldn't know who was saying it to who. Who's doing the saying? Wouldn't make sense. So we have to say sisipa. Waiwiamuak otagake tapsi chik. Waiwiamuak. Waiwiamu. Well, Waiwi is outside. The amu part. I think there's other words like that. Let's check out Ben's site again. Amu. To flee. Does it only happen with yamu? It might. See what happens if we put yamu. Gesiskayamu, flee quickly. Kitse kosiamu, flee climbing. Kiweyamu, geo, scare people home. That's interesting. Kiweyamu, flee home. So that yamu part is the part that means to flee. Hey, that's kind of cool. Waiwiamuak, they fled outside. Kotagak. Tapasi chik, they ran away. Heksuai wisagitsak ipahpit, so wisagitsak went outside laughing. Imiwetak. He was happy. Mistahin gamitsun. Mistahin gamitsun. I'm gonna eat a lot. Etetak, he thought, eh? Egsipigo namo mawigi. So we broke down that lodge, that house, the dwelling, I guess you'd say. Oh, himi taiotanak, he took the wood. He kota wait. He built a fire, eh? Oh, we now it's eat. He was gonna roast those. Ni pinaya. That word, the interpretation over here says those summer creatures, but it would be those various birds, eh? Those juicy birds. Hegse now it's eat. So then he roasted them. Kakio now it's you. Hegso sami epuna puesu. Usamis the he epuna. Is that punao? Is that the word? Punao? Put fuel on the fire. He put too much fuel on the fire. Upwe su, which is like he got hot. Yeah, he worked up a sweat. Sipwe teo, so then he left. Pitanga po nepwe sin. Pita. For a while, first of all, so I wonder if that's related to like pitama. If you can say that, pitama is like for a while, yeah. First of all. Pitangat pun apwe sin. Ikoyagok tagis suwak niniski mak. My geese, they'll be roasted by that time. Etetak, he thought, eh? Tapwe way say tit. So he went a ways away. Kawap mat makis, he saw fox, eh? We saw ke tamiet. Oskatiu. Fox had a bum leg. What this guy it? What does it say? It was limping. Gaigi pimutit. He wasn't able to walk. We tapasiig what he was gonna run away from him. Chesquan sim. To. Just wait a minute, Wisagitak said to him. Wa moya, Dick. Fox said, Usamaga mina, nanto gui. Tout the win, because you'll do something bad to me, I guess, eh? He said to Wisagitak. Moya, it will. We had some mustatan. I'm going to tell you a story. He omaka tensi Mr. He ga piggy take. That's smoke. Oh, that's interesting. Just reminded me of that word. Oh, you piggy tingain. You make smoke. You see that big smoke over there? Aha. Dick. Fox said to him. Ego tamitsit, ninipahawak niskak minasisi pak ego ta naotsian. Over there, I killed a whole bunch of ducks and geese, and I roasted them there. Ate that, he said to Fox. Mr. He, kamitsuna no. We're gonna have our filling. Iteo. Maga pitaga kakwe nagatuna no. Nagataneo. Nagatun. But let us race. Nagatuneo. Nagatun. What is the word? Hmm. It reminds me of, well, nagateo is to leave somebody, right? Yeah, to leave someone. But if you say nagato, race each other. That's interesting. It's an interesting word. Nagato. So there's a typo there. Nagatitano. Nagatetonano. Nimawayo. Gaspatna. Gaspatna kego ga. Te tepeo e pahtana. Wow. I don't know that word. It's over here. Let's run around that hill not far from here. Nimawayo gaspatna kego. Te tepeo e pahtana. Wow. Oh, excuse me. Apparently I'm tired. Te pewe patao. Huh, cool. Te pewe patao. Te pewe. So I wonder if you can say that. Let's see what we find. Nothing. Oh, te pewe. Te pewe. Oh yeah, run around it. Te pewe payaho. Go quickly around something. Te pewe. Go around. Te pewe yamo. We just, to flee, we just looked up that yamo. Oh, that's a cool word. Te pewe ya. Bike sin lies in a coiled string. That's cool. Very cool. I get the weirdest comments. I get so much spam on Twitch. Wild. So we'll go run around Nima Wayoga Sputnak. Ilgoga Te Pewe Pahtana. Wow, we'll go run around that hill. Ah, Namoya. Gewapa min. Ega igi mote. And you could see I can't walk. It was sage the man is scat. Twelve makes. I hurt my leg. Or with my sore leg, he says, I guess. Umsi twelve sage tak. Asiniak ska tik. Gatako pitawak. I'll tie some rocks to my legs. He said. Eha. Twelve makes. Asinia utne Wisagitak. So Wisagitak took some rocks. Kopitat uskatik, and he tied them to his legs. His leg. Ah, sim. Egwa. So egwa in this context, it's kind of like let's go. Egwa sipuite wak. So then they set off. Nagateo makesi sawe sagetak. So there's that perfect example, right? Nagateo means that one left someone behind. But if we said Nagateo make siswe sagetak, it would not be clear who left who behind. Eh? So one of those has to have a or wa on the end, so it's clear who left who. In this case, Wisagetak left the fox behind. Nagateo make sisa Wisagetak. Hey. Omikawagi. Here's that H again. How about makesis? I don't think these show up. Mikawagi is a fast runner. That H is almost like something. Well, in this case, he says, I thought he was a fast runner. Huh. That's interesting. Omigawe gi awa makesis. Ga Kitamagasgatag. Kitamagasgatag. Nisim. Kitamagasgatag. I gotta look that up. Well, Gitamag is like to have to do with pity. Oh, it's a typo. Gaskateo. That's a very specific word. That one outruns someone in a pitiful way. That's so suspicious. That's so specific. That is such a specific word. To outrun someone in a pitiful way. I need to find a way to work that into my vocabulary. Just so I can use it one day. It's just such an interesting, specific word. Hey, o mi kawe gia wa mes make sis ka kitama gaskatak nisim. Itap. There's another one. These little particles that I always forget. Itap. Afterwards. Itapatit nga samao. I'm gonna feed him a bit later on. Iegok takato tagopatatse. When we arrive, I guess. No, when he arrives. Tagopatatse. When he arrives. The implication is when he arrives running. When he arrives running. Itwe osage. Mayo agawe wait wisage tsak. There's that. I just read this the other day and can't remember that word. He was out of sight. Mayo agawe wait. As soon as he was out of sight, wisage tsak. Giwe payu wa make sees Fox went back. Moye wisage tako Scott. His leg wasn't hurt. Oma ga pagite it. He went straight for the. That's how I interpret that. He went straight for the smoke. He made for the rising smoke, yeah. Tagotate. When he arrived, niska si pa mina gawap mat. Egis soyit. He saw those ducks and geese. He saw them just roasting there in the fire. Neo, he took them. Egwai mitsut. And he ate them. Wisage aqua gimutamuat. He what would you say? He scooped them up. He stole them. Onawatsiu winiu, his roasts, he scooped them up, Wisage roast. What is my Twitch name? That's a great question. It's Otpemsu. I'll drop it in the chat here. But I don't know if the stream is working over there. It's actually, I think the best performance is actually on the Discord server. I think. But, or like, I assume Twitch is working, but when I look at my stream log here, it says unable to connect, so I don't know if it's working or not. I do get comments from there, so it must be. I remember when I read this not that long ago, and this whole phrase confused me a little bit, but I get it now. That's what I mean about like coming back to things, especially if you come back and read a story again in a month or 2 months or like, you know, every month or something like that. It's like in the beginning, I remember when I was tripping over every single word, like every single word's like, why did you say that? What does that mean? Why did you say that? Why is that word there? What is this particle again? What is this noun again? Like when you can't remember, when you're trying to remember everything, it's really challenging. And so in those contexts, it's really important to work on small stories. But it's still important to work on stories, in my opinion, from fluent speakers, like not made up stories. It's tempting for learners to like make up stories sometimes as practice, but if we spend too much time with those, then we can end up with bad habits or a misunderstanding of how storytelling works. And so I think it's important that we work on stories from fluent speakers. There are some books. You know what I just realized? If you'll give me just a second here. Was that a kid that just came downstairs? Oh, I don't know if anybody's down here. Kid! I thought I saw somebody come down. I'm going to send a message. And I'm going to see if a kid will bring down one or more of those books. Because there are some good books here for a little more advanced beginner stuff, I guess. I'm just messaging my kids. And the other one is Three Bears. These are good stories. There's some stories available from SICC Store, the Saskatchewan Indigenous Cultural Center. If you go to their store and you go to, well, in my case, it'd be Plains Cree. The ICANN ones and some of the other storybooks, I think they're okay, but I think the ICANN ones, they're just sort of like one word per page. And I'm looking for something a little more advanced than that. So the Ogani series is the ones. These are actually, and they're just like $4. There's like a whole story here for $6. Like these are really great resources. My daughter doesn't like all of them. Like she doesn't really care for like Nimitawak, Mantogisagao, Maskigis, Tagohteo. Like she doesn't want to read those ones as much. But Bahquiscanapesis and Nistomasquak we've read so many times. And they're good, challenging books in that there's lots of words in there that you will understand. Oh, here we go. Ay, miyasan. Oh, yeah. Ay, no, ay, kotakan ma, Bahquiscanapesis. Oh, no, moya, Nistomasquak, mina. Moya? Okay. This one here too, Eddie Aigis. I don't think it's the Ogani series though, but this is another good book here. And then Bahquiscanapesis, another good one. Because because there's, let's try to prop this open. Every page has like a full sentence or a couple sentences of story in there. And what I found that really good for is there was at least one or two words on there I had to go and figure out what they meant. But especially with Bahquiscanapesis, it's like there's a lot of repetition. So you end up saying the same words, and then it'll introduce a little bit more, and then repetition, then a little bit more, and then repetition. And so it was challenging enough that it was making me learn something, but it was also still simple enough that I could read it. And I could read it regularly. Like I said, we've read them a lot. So these are really good. Don't know how I got on those. We're just talking about repetition. It's not like where every word, oh, I don't know that word. Oh, I don't know that word. Oh, why'd they use oma there? Oh, I don't know that word. Like that's really hard when you don't understand a lot. But if you can get to the point where you're advancing a little bit and find stories that are just challenging you just enough where you're at, where you understand most of it, then you will start to learn a lot. Then reading can be very beneficial, in my experience. So this word here, o nawatsiwi inua, his roasts, Wisagaitak's roasted ducks. Get them well kakio, he ate them all. Ostio epago he niska, eguasisi paego nipago escoteca stau. He just put the feet, pago he niska, the duck and the goose feet, he just put them back in the fire. The wapatagwe sagitsaki teta. Yeah, he's going to see those, he thought. He'll see those. Exitapsiu, and then he took off, eh? Gagisua, how he's gonna be mad at me. Etema wisagitsak, where he thought of wisagitsak. Egwa wisagitsak iegok tagoteo itagotit. Let's look that up again because there's another iengok. I have to do this multiple times with these words sometimes. I'm going to interpret that as only then. Only then did Wisagitsak arrive. Mistehe apwesu, just hot, I guess. Ayes mistehe pimpatao, because he'd been running a lot. Hey, aste pue siane. Gamit sun. Aste pue siane. When I am no longer hot. Aste pue siane. Gamitson. Eteta. Etap, later. Atit. Gasamaun. Sim, I'll feed a bit to my little brother later. Iteomake sisa. Iegok tagoteitse. Itetam. Soon as he arrives. Again, Iegok. So Iegok is locked in my brain as like to that extent. But again, in this context, it means when the time comes. When the time comes that he arrives. Moigisketa masai e gitam wayet oniski ma. He didn't know that Fox had already eaten all of the geese. Hegsegwa neotnam oma ositi you. Namagi gweniska. So hegsegwa ne. So then he took those. Otanamo city, we grabbed those feet. Namagi gweniska, there was nothing. There was no goose there. Hey. No sam mestikas wow. No sam mestikas wow. Thanks for stopping by, Bill. Bill says, I have to go, but thank you for sharing this with us. I know lots of the words, but not necessarily in all of these forms. There's a recording of this on going to be on the YouTube channel as well, so you can always go back and catch the end. We're going to wrap up in about 15 minutes anyway, Bill. So, but thanks for stopping by. Yeah, glad you came. No sam nito sam would be another way you could probably say that. Nito sam me sti kwaswao. I have overcooked them. Ito. Pies kakiot, now we took all of them. Kakio na magigwe. Oh, sti wepago only feet. Hey, maga bina itzaga na. E wai se hit maki sis. Oh no. E mahi se hit. E wai se hit e mahi se hit maki sis. Ka get them what? Niski ma. What does it say over here? Surely Fox has been fooling me again, eating up my geese. And so I am to stay hungry. Eitsaga, which is like, we looked this one up, but particles sometimes are the ones I struggle with, I don't know why. Lo and behold. And so it appears. It turns out. Indeed. Yeah, so that makes sense actually. And so I am to stay hungry. Yeah. That's pretty cool. I remember looking at this before and not understanding that, but now it's starting to make sense. Eggs, it's like, that's it. Eitsaga. Lo and behold, or it, and so it is to be, or something. Ane, indeed. Ke no tegete yan for me to be hungry. Itueo. Ha ha. Kekis. Kekisuahin make sis you made me mad, fox. Moi tapi tsao. Aski. Ite. That itamuin. There's that runaway part. Pizzao is like something that's like when they say it makes me think of that. Bimatisuangapi tag. Full and long and full, I guess. What does it say over here? The earth will not be big enough for you to escape. That makes sense. Moita pizzao ski itamuin. Nia ski. I made the earth. Kamiskatin, I'll find you. Miskatani, when I find you. Kagitamwatsik. Kagitamwatsik. Niniskimak, you who ate my geese. I will find you, and when I find you. Huh. Itoyo isage tsak. Isipwete in Tunawat Mahkesi, I went to look for fox. Moiwayo. Tat. He wasn't that far away. Kawapamat nan payit. Mitane. A Mr. Teit. He was oh, this word is full, right? Oh, his belly was big. Ate. Like no tega teo. Ate. No, that's not it. Atai. Oh yeah, natai is my belly. Atai, yeah. So he had a big belly. That's a cool word. Mr. Tayit. Mitane Mr. Tayit as Aisk Gigispuiwa, because he filled himself, he was full. What does it say? He had eaten a hearty fill. Gispo we learn as full, but it can mean having enough to eat. Had your fill. Asinia utaneo we pagamahwat. He was gonna smack him with a rock. Tuyo. Nega what do gata wow. I don't know this word. I shall ruin his hide. Is that what that means? That's interesting. I shall ruin his hide, it says. Ngo what niga wago what togata wow. Here's that H again. Nga utastotni. Awa. Make si suayan. That's a fox hide. It will. I interpret that as I could make a good hat. What does it say over here? I might as well have a cap of his fox pelt. Go otastotni. That's interesting. Kiam ga pasisamuao. Kiam ga pasisamuao. The nipaha pasutu mahuche. Kaskapa teo. What's that word mean? Make a fire around him. Pasisamuel. Pasisamuel. Yeah, I don't know that word. The nipahapasut. Nipahapaso sounds like die of something. Die of smoke. The nipahapasut omoche. Kaskapa teo. To choke on the smoke, I guess. Nanito tag. Oma etat. But the fox heard him. Nitota, or it was, yeah, he heard him. Nitota. Listen to him. The fox was listening to him. Umaitat, what he'd said about him. Execute the will. So Wisagetak made a fire. Wasagame a Saskahak Muskosia. Saskaho is to like light something. Saskahak, so he lit the grass, I guess. Egwahe Kwakoteik. What's that mean? Oh, when the blaze came. Guacoteo. That's an interesting word. Guacoteo. When it catches fire. Caught fire. One scow Amake sees the fox got up. Mr. Gaskapaso. It was smoky, I guess. That was the similar to that one, eh? Gaskapa Deo, smoky. But then there was one more where he said, Tisqua. Wasn't there another one where he said he would? Oh, interesting. Apaso. So to die from the smoke. Gaskapaso. Apaso again right there. Gaskapaso. It is smoked. It is smoked or gets smoked out. Interesting. Too much smoke. No more lies on YouTube says. Too much smoke. Hey, Hisaki Tsakomsito. Hey, mate. Mina kita mok. Niniske mak. It will. Just you eat up my geese again. Can you say that? Kita mo? No. Huh. Just you eat up my geese again, Iteo, he said to him. Kung tawas ka pai hoa make si se kaska pateik mista he. Waska pai ho, so he went in circles, I guess. Awamake sis, ikaska pateik, he was getting smoked out, mista he. Bisk moya wap me o sagetak, so eventually he couldn't see or because bisk. Yeah, bisk. Finally, or because bisk. Eventually. Yeah, I get this one in Aisk. Aisk and bisk I get mixed up. Aisk because, bisk eventually. In due course, the next gradual progression. Bisk moe wap me Wisagetak, so eventually he didn't see Wisagetak. Quasque payaho awamake sis, he jumped. Iskoteo ma e paste quasco did. This one here, paste. What does that mean? Over. E paste guasco did, he jumps over the fire, he tapasit. Moy wap me Wisagetak, but Wisagetak didn't see him. E tapasiet, Fox, as Fox ran away. Bies miss away, paste you, egota e waska tit Wisagetak, pasite you. There was fire. Burnt out, hey? I think that's what it means here. What does it say? Oh, at last there was a big fire. A waska date. He walked around it. That's cool. That's a cool word. A waska date. Oh, I forgot my glasses there. Meow 11 says, I can't make out what Chitsuin. Chitsuin. I don't know what that means. Tapwe nagitimahaw. E nipahi kaswak maki sis I killed him. What does it say? I have surely put an end to Fox, burning him to death. That's so funny. Burned to death. Itweo me wisage kawapa tak pi koe astek when he saw just ashes there. Mustusu me and buffalo dung, I guess you'd say. Itaigi astek where it had been. Tapwe nigitama gi kaswao. I truly burned him to death, etuit. Matiga isko ka sut. Ngamuao isko kasuche. Isko kasuche. What does that mean? Isko kasut. Isko. I shall eat what is left of him. Huh. That's interesting. Isko kasu. Burnt to a certain point. I just wanted to see if that related back to a couple of those other words. Interesting. Gamuao. Isko kaso tse. If it's cooked up, I'll eat him. E teta. O mapi ko e wi otnak, but he would only grab ashes. Ka gis sut isko teo eso meo gomake sis. The fire burned him up, I guess. E tetak. E tis sut. He tricked himself. Tis hut. He was mistaken. Ego moig sketa megi tapasiet. Even now, it says. I was going to look that up again. Even now, he did not know that the fox ran away. Vegsi ego eogo atayoke win. So that's that. That's that story. Yeah. Scooby. Yeah, Mia Sin, Scooby says, I'm learning my language. You're good. Mio says, Isko fire, Ishko day lighter. Sounds like a Nishnabbe one, eh? Ishko day. Ganihioak mana. Ganihioak aya Isko teo. Etoyak mana. Ishko day, Isko teo. Aya. Etatah keskoat si kipa. Ha otenigan ai sinu kito pegu. Now then, ahead in a future time, mortal man will grow up. Kawapa mikoma ka nanapoto ka nanatisqua. Katan niskatan. Kaniskatan. Nanapoto kaniskatan. Ga nanapoto kaniskatan. Where I have kicked your rump crooked. What's an interesting word? Si keep kiga sigat tigwak. Moiga miasin. Osam kigisua hin. Ewitaman. You will not be handsome. You have angered you too much. You have angered me by telling this and by opening your eyes, he told him. Exeogo. You can find these stories on my site. If you go to kiano.net and from there you want to go to Bloomfield. If you scroll down the page, you can find those stories. They're further down the page, so once you get there, go down to the bottom where it says Bloomfield Online, and you can click through to those stories. Interesting story. Oh, where can I find this? Yeah. Interesting. These stories were captured in 1925 on Sweetgrass Reserve in Saskatchewan. And there were actually 1,800 pages of stories were captured. But when Bloomfield went to publish them, because he was working with the National Museum Archive or something like that. Chisqua. I got a new book here that tells me where this was from. He had 1,800 pages of stories, and when he went to go and publish them, the folks who were, yep, you have to, which I never really thought about until Arden Oak from the Cree Literacy Network did a presentation on this this fall. Under the auspices of the National Museum of Canada, the Canadian Department of Mines, Bloomfield spent 5 weeks on Sweetgrass Reserve and 1 week at Le Pas, and a brief period at Star Blanket Reserve on southeastern Saskatchewan between Fort Qu'Appelle and Melville. So he had he came back and he ended up with 1,800 pages of stories, but they were just kind of entering into the Depression. And so when they said, well, you're going to have to cut this down, and they ended up cutting it down to 600 pages. And they even went so far to say as well, if you took out the Indian language, wouldn't it be half of that? But he had somebody on his side, I guess, where he was working, and they fought for this, and they got it. They published the first book, and that was Sacred Stories of the Sweetgrass Cree. That was in 1930. And so originally the agreement was to publish all of the works, but then he lost, as far as I know, he lost his funding. That was all the funding he could get from them for that book. So then 4 years later, Plains Cree Text was published through a different organization. I think it was in the States. I'll have to go look again. But he made an agreement and published the second book. But there's actually a third volume. There's a third book that was unpublished and sat in an archive at the APS until, well, linguists had a hold of it in the universities, but basically until I stumbled across it a few years ago and requested a copy of it and got the PDF and whatnot, and then started working on it. So anyway, long story longer, we have the third book. We have it in SRO, and we have it ready to go online. So we'll hopefully have that online in the new year, and redo this a little bit so you'll be able to go and read through Sacred Stories, Plains Cree Text. And then the third one is called Series 2. It's actually a continuation of Plains Cree Text. Plains Cree Text is Series 1. And then the other one is called Series 2. And then there's some other syllabic scripts in there from a couple other reserves too. So we're just working on getting all of that ready and online for clean it up and consumable. But then beyond that, one of Bloomfield's informants, when he collected those original stories, was an old man by the name of Finde Kamiokisikwe. He was Poundmaker's war chief in the Battle of, I think it's Cut Knife, or something like that. And so in that third volume, there are a handful of stories from Kamiokisikwe. Kamiokisikwe was also the informant for Mandelbaum, who was at Sweetgrass in 1935, and he published a book about something, anthropology, something. I forget what it's called. But anyway, through all of this and through having the third volume of texts, a bunch of which were written in syllabics. I can show those to you right now. Just find my PDF here. This is what they look like. So this is the very first text in this book is by Atse Nam. There's a whole bunch of these in here, and these ones are all written by fluent speakers. Those are hard to see, I know, but you can kind of see them there. These are all written by fluent speakers, and Bloomfield wrote in his notes that he gave Atse Nam this notebook, and Atse Nam mistakenly thought he had to fill the whole thing because he filled every last page with stories to the point where he was running out of stories but there's stories in here from a handful of speakers, including Finde, Kamio Gisikweyo. He also has stories in here. In syllabics, they were written in syllabics texts by the fluent speakers, and that's the book series 3. So we have a copy of that we're getting ready to put online pretty soon. And anyway, through all of that process, randomly we ran into Wes Finde, who was Kamio Gisigwe was his great grandfather, and Wes knew some of these people from the Bloomfield, like this Chichikwayu. I just uploaded a story. This is what's so cool about this whole project with Wes. We started a project with him where we're recording stories. We in collaboration with Cree Literacy Network, we applied for a grant in the spring and we got it. And we've been recording stories with Wes Finde. But he knew some of these people. The story I just uploaded today is about this speaker right here, Titi Kwayu. But Wes tells us a story about him, right? I've got stories up there about Coming Day, where there's a story there about Coming Day flies out of a car. So he knew some of these people, right? And he's told me other stories about the Atse Nums. He talks about Maggie Atse Nam. There was actually two Maggie Atse Nums. There was the mother Maggie, and then there was the daughter Maggie. They were both Atse Nums. So it's super interesting. So this project, I met Wes last fall in Winnipeg, just coincidentally through an event put on by the MICC, and we ended up. He was working with another lady trying to read through one of these texts in syllabics. It's actually the origin story of the syllabics about Mistanaskoyo, but she had transliterated it into sort of SRO. But if you ever read old syllabics, you know that they don't always have all of the pieces, right? And so I had a copy of the SRO version on my laptop through the graces of Arden Oak, because she'd got them from Wolf Art. She went to visit him and said, "Hey, there's this young guy out west. He found these. He's working on these stories. Is there any way you'd be willing to share the?" I'm pretty sure we have a copy of these somewhere that I worked on in the 80s, back in the day when mainframes used tape, reel-to-reel tape, magnetic tape for storage, and we only had uppercase letters on our computers and stuff. Anyway, so she got a copy of these, and I had them on my computer. I actually have a video of that somewhere where I saw Wes. Well, I saw these two sitting there working on this story, trying to struggle through these, trying to find it was in October of last year when I was in Winnipeg. I'm just going to see if I can find that. Was it October? I'm sure it was October. Was it last year or was it 2 years ago? I'm not even sure. I saw them working on this and struggling, and I thought, I'm sure I have a copy of this on my laptop, and I dug through and I found it. And then I started reading the SRO, and Wes started interpreting in real time. And I was like, this is amazing. This is absolutely incredible. And it was the story of Calling Badger, Mr. Naskoyo. Of course, while I'm looking for the photos and the videos right now, I can't find them, but that's okay. Not the end of the world. I thought it was October of 2024. Right in there. That's when I went to Winnipeg. Anyway, so then after we met Wes, and I think it was Arden's idea, or like he told some stories, and he just had such interesting stories. And I said to Arden said, or at some point, and we were like, oh, we should, he knows some of these people. He told some stories about because I had the Bloomfield stories right there, and he was talking about these people, about Atsinums and telling all of this stuff. And Arden was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could spend a bunch of time with this guy and get some of these stories, do some of that stuff? And I'm like, boy, that would be super cool. And so we put a grant in and we got it. So we've spent 3 weeks so far with Wes. I think it's on a different drive. Sorry, I'm still looking for that video. Of course, the best way to do this is during the live while everybody's sitting there. And the whole purpose of this project, we're calling it Sweetgrass Stories, a 21st Century Perspective. And the purpose of this project is sort of to help connect the stories to like a modern context. Like help them feel relevant in a contemporary context, right? Because to inspire people or remind them that, this stuff is still here. And Wes is such a phenomenal storyteller, honestly. Here we win. Oh, clearly I just can't find Winnipeg. Let's try it that way. Winnipeg trip. That's the one. It wasn't 20. It was in. Yeah, there it is right there. So let me see. It's going to be one of these. Wes Finde. He told a really good story about the wind and rain are my friends. I don't think it was this video. I think it was the next one. Yeah, so here it is here. So I had my laptop and I found the story that they were working on, which had been printed out and wasn't quite SRO because it was just transliterated directly off the syllabics. And so I would basically just start reading the story, and then Wes would interpret in real time, and it was phenomenal. It was like, this is so magical. This is such an interesting experience. And Wes said in that moment, he was like, well, I need to talk to leadership. Like, we need to do a camp. We need to bring these stories up and talk about this history and talk about the history of our community in this area and all of this stuff. And at the time I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, that'd be cool. Like a camp would be cool or whatever, but you never know where things are going to go. Right. And sure enough, that camp happened. We went this summer. He got connected with the leadership and they messaged me and said, hey, can you come out? And we sat there for 4 days and we just talked about, I brought all my books. I brought copies of these stories or whatever. And so this recording project we're doing is just kind of a continuation of that. Like the story just continues. It's really quite amazing. And who knows where it's going to go from here. Who knows where it's going to go from here. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Maybe just, if I played this little chunk, oh no, it wouldn't come through anyway because, yeah, there's no audio connected there. Yeah, another time. I think we're going to wrap it up there. It was just a good, easy night. A little bit of reading. I always like doing stories, especially when there's snow. Get back into the winter stories. Technically, I think they start on the winter solstice, eh? But if we do a couple stories, that's okay. Hamaga, kakisita no egwa. Ay miasin uma gatoska tama hota anutska tipskag. Miwa sin mina kakyoga tagosini ka wita pimtoye ka wita toskem toye ka wita atoskemiek anut saya miste ni miwe tenegwa naskomoyan in naskum tagok etam skatagok egwa esagi tagok kakyo kiwa ya miste he ay kamamitsi hin. Yeah, kamamitsi hinawa. Ay kananaskum tinawa. Everybody that came to visit tonight, I'm grateful. Miasano mayatsumu na ay mitsigeak manaya. Hegsisi ewi kakwe sapon stotamako maya kipikskwono sam kispinegai ay witsisoyak kispinegai toskatamak egai ay natotamako maya niyoiwin namagigwayota gaitagon tapetamak mana kapikskwono ta kwe ay an stotamak ta kwe gisketama uma osamaya. If we don't hear the language, if we don't listen to the language, if we don't see the language, we don't spend time with the language, then it won't stay with us. See. So I'm grateful for everybody that come to hang out. I help keep me going on this journey. We'll do another live stream on Sunday where we will pick up where we left off on that last story we were working on, which was the Flying Sweat Lodge. That's on Sunday nights. We get fired up about the same time, 6 o'clock Pacific. And I think we're a couple minutes into this story here. I think we're about maybe, what did we leave off, 7 minutes in? Almost 8 minutes into this story. So we'll pick up on that one on Sunday, and we'll take it from there. Ahaw, sai mina kakyo kitum skat now. How can an ask tinawao mina kakyo gape gilgo ye kanuts? Egwaya, ego taga kisita. No, we're going to stop it there. Mio tipskansik kakyo, and we'll see you on the next one. Ahaw.